Hey guys, I want to make a quick video about the 1 TB external hard drive market. I did a lot of research myself trying to find the best one. Turned out to be a huge headache, but I did come out of it satisfied, learned some things, and I wanted to share those things with you so you don't have to go through the same experience and deal with the same headaches that I did. The first thing I wanted to start off saying is that most of the hard drives these days are very similar. They all have a very similar plastic shell, which leaves the build quality unfortunately falling short. There are some aluminum cased drives, but from my experience they only provide a slightly better build quality than the plastic, and they do come at a slightly higher price point. Another thing all these drives have in common is a very low quality USB 3.0 cable. The reason for the shorter cable is because longer cables mean more resistance, and if you have too much resistance, the drive isn't going to get the amount of electricity it needs. So if you're thinking about replacing the shorter cord with something longer, especially if you have like a desktop, don't go out and buy the longest cord that you can find because it could cause problems with the drive. Overall, these are pretty simple devices, and ultimately what matters most is the reliability. Unfortunately, this is a tricky thing to nail down, but I will present to you some of the facts that I had found and hopefully make this a little bit easier for you. That being said, the two biggest brands you will see are going to be Western Digital and Seagate, which are way ahead of everyone else in terms of online reviews, being featured in articles, blogs, what have you. And following them are going to be Toshiba and HGST, which is also a branch of Hitachi. And then after those two, really, it's everyone else. We're going to cover all of these big brands in this video, and if you want, there are plenty of other smaller companies like Buffalo, Lacey, G Technology. They're all doing really good things, but I decided to stick with some of the more well-known brands. Now, when it comes to brands, there are a lot of discrepancies between which brand is the most reliable. And again, there really isn't a definitive answer. I think that ultimately stems from the fact that certain brand models perform better than others. The problem is identifying which models within a specific brand perform better than others. That data is unfortunately very hard to come by. Luckily, there was one study done by Blackburn, which is the website I have pulled up here, that breaks down the reliability of Western Digital, Seagate, and Hitachi. The good thing about sample size is extremely large, and it's done over a multi-year time frame. It is the best data I was able to find out there. If you're able to find something better, please let me know so I can update this video. Before we hop into the study, I wanted to go over what I had found just through online research. And the online sentiment in general seems to be very positive for both Western Digital and Seagate. The biggest difference I noticed between the two is that there were a lot more very negative reviews about Seagate, more than just about any other brand, in fact. Hitachi ended up mostly like Western Digital, which was positive. What separated Hitachi from everyone else was there was especially good reviews coming from very experienced hard drive folks. I wish I had some of the links to provide to you guys, but unfortunately I don't. But I did read a few places online where employees of large data centers said that their company would use Hitachi hard drives exclusively because of their reliability. And lastly, Toshiba's sentiment was also very positive. In fact, I had read somewhere that Toshiba was very similar to that of Hitachi in terms of reliability, only slightly behind it, which makes sense. If you take a look at HGST's Wikipedia page, you'll find that Hitachi provided Toshiba with some of their manufacturing equipment. But let's go ahead and get into this paper. I will provide this link to you guys in the comments below so you can take a look at it a little bit more in detail yourself, but it does go over some of the different models that this study looked at, and here's the actual results. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that these are not external hard drives, like I mentioned earlier, nor are they specific to 1 TB. But as you can see, Seagate has a much higher failure rate than the other brands. And I think these results are consistent with the online sentiment that I found of Seagate, Western Digital, and Hitachi. Seagate had much more pronounced negative reviews, and I think that's probably coming from the higher failure rates that some of their models have. The rest of their models are generating good reviews for them. Hitachi does seem to have the lowest failure rate among the three, which I think explains why larger businesses prefer to use their drives. And Western Digital comes in a close second behind Hitachi. And, obviously you can see the reason why that they're getting the reviews that they get. Now, this data is through 2014. They do have some other data that is over a 36-month time frame. And if you look, this is a 36-month survival rate. And as you can see, they're all pretty similar up until about 6 months, which is where the Seagate drives start to fail. At about 1.5 years, Seagate really starts to, fall off. Now, since this is the best evidence we do have, the one thing I will say, and many people will still disagree with me on this, but the one brand I wouldn't buy is Seagate. And this is just from all of the evidence that I've been able to find. It does appear that they are the least reliable of the big brands. Seagate does have plenty of models that do have a low failure rate, but as we established earlier, it's almost impossible to identify which models those are. So until another study like Blackburn comes out, I think choosing Western Digital, Hitachi, or Toshiba will overall decrease the chances of you getting a drive that fails. Now, with all that being said, here are the drives that I would recommend to you. I've personally owned all three of these myself, and these are my opinions on them. The first drive that I would recommend is the Western Digital My Passport. The pros of this drive, it obviously has really amazing online reviews. It's well priced at $59. That's as of March 5th, 2015. And it also comes with a 3-year warranty. One thing to note, and this really isn't a con to me, but the build quality was lower than I had anticipated. It does look really nice, but feels cheaper than the other models that I used. Some of the cons from this drive is that it was louder than the other models, and I think this is because as the disc spins, the noise bounces off the plastic shell. It creates a sound that's similar to a white noise machine. I think if they put some sort of dampening material in or around the drive, it would be much more quiet. Another thing, this drive did run slightly warmer than the other models. You should note that as well. Overall, you really can't go wrong with this drive, especially if you are loyal to Western Digital. But I think if you reach out to other brands, you can do slightly better. The next brand I wanted to cover is the HGST Toro S 1 terabyte. The pros of this drive is that it looks really nice. The build quality is the highest of the three, and it does have some really great reviews, just not as much as Seagate and Western Digital. The cons of this drive is that it is slightly more expensive at $70, and probably of the three, it has the cheapest USB 3 cable. I've read some people had to replace their cable, which the cost of replacing a USB 3 cable runs probably somewhere between $5 to $10, which adds even more to the cost. But overall, if you want the reliability of Hitachi and are okay with spending a little bit more, this is a great option for you. And the last drive that I would recommend is the Toshiba Canvio Basics. This comes with my highest recommendation. Not only does it have good reviews, but by far runs the coolest and also runs the quietest. You're going to get the best price at $55, and the build quality falls between the Western Digital drive and the HGST drive. The only cons that I could find with this was that you only get a 1-year warranty, but overall, in my opinion, this is the best drive of the three. Its reviews are similar to that of the Western Digital, but its build quality and overall performance are better. So this would be my pick. So even though this is my most recommended drive for you, what I would say in my advice would just be to go with the brand that you like the best. Unless it happens to be Seagate, then I would say venture out and try something new. Chances are your hard drive will perform reliably, but remember to always back up your most important files in multiple places. At the end of the day, every drive is going to fail eventually. So those are my recommendations and my reviews. I hope these were beneficial for you. If it was, give me a thumbs up in the link below. I appreciate you guys listening.